Hello out there to everyone who loves model railroading. And welcome to the Union Pacific Railroad Evanston subdivision in gorgeous HO scale. My name is Daryl Cruz, owner and builder of the layout, and your host for a spectacular scenery episode. This is a weekly update, and it is spectacular, I hope, because we finally have all of the colors in. Not only the rocks, which I did the previous weeks, but then now also all of the ground. Got the base color painted and all the ground foam and vegetation entered in. But before I get to that, wanted to put in a little commercial for some things I have for sale. Lots of Soundtrax Tsunami 2 OEM decoders in EMD sounds. So I have a bunch of those. Also have some locomotives, and then also lots of containers. Union Pacific has a lot of dark colored containers, not that many of the white containers. So I have a bunch of these white containers for sale. If you want to pick up some, very cheap. They usually retail for $12 to $15 a piece. I'm selling these for $8.75. Well, this is what things look like at the last update not too long ago. And so this last week I moved forward and began working on the rest of this scene. First thing I did was to paint the track. I always try to do this before I do the final painting of the ground cover and putting in vegetation and everything. I used a rust color first, and I sprayed it at an angle. I'm just kind of pretending here right now because I have it all done. But I spray the rust at an angle to get the sides of the rails, and then I use a dark brown. This is a flat earth brown, and I spray that from straight down. Again, I'm pretending here. And this method, basically what it does is it gets the ties painted the dark brown color, but then leaves the sides of the rails in the rust color. So it gives a pretty realistic effect. And it's not real consistent. You have some areas where you have a lot of rust, some areas where not that much rust. Just depends on how the brown hits it, but definitely is a good way to get things looking pretty good. So definitely a good idea to do this before painting the scenery. I have done it after, but you have to put a lot of stuff down to protect it and everything. So definitely a good idea to do it first. Now here's what I use to get the plaster painted and ground foam and stuff. This is my standard base paint, also a very cheap dead flat color, and Sonoran Desert is what it is. Then I use some fine turf, some yellow and different green colors. And then I go from the fine turf to coarse turf, light green and medium green. I don't really have a lot of different colors here. And that says yellow grass there, by the way, but it's not. I sometimes, if I run short, I'll move them back and forth. And then move from the coarse turf up to underbrush. And then finally, here's some more underbrush. And then finally you get to the clump foliage. Now again, if you look at this, I don't really have a lot of the different types, especially in the underbrush. So I picked up some additional materials from my good friends at Lombard Hobbies. This is my last pickup of materials for scenery. I'm thinking I just have a little bit of scenery to do, and I'm running this at fast time just to kind of move things along a little bit. But you can see a lot of the different colors that I got and different textures, the medium green, coarse green, and so on. And was able to mainly get some of the lighter colors, the yellow and green and so forth. And now you can see my supply of scenery materials has increased. And you can see there I have a couple more yellow greens, something called an earth blend, which is a lot darker and everything. So I was ready to go, ready to get things going. It's always a good idea to have all the different supplies you need before you get started. Now this is a very interesting view. As you can see, I have some of them, the ground foam on, but then there's this area here on top of the mountains. That was the hardest part to do. Now this first corner though, I was able to get behind the layout, as you can see here. So this first little rock formation, I was able to attack it from on top. So that was this one here. Notice I also used my playing cards as protection for the backdrop. Now this one here, I was not able to get it from behind. So it was a lot of reaching. I only had like maybe 3.5 inches between the upper deck and the top of the mountain. So it was kind of hard to get all the ground foam and stuff on there. Now you notice I did put the masking tape on the track, obviously, to keep that protected. Definitely is messy. I'm about halfway through at this point, as you can see. And here's the paint. I had to go get some more paint. I thought I had enough to finish this, but did not. So I had to run to Home Depot real quick and get some more. Again, that's a Sonoran Desert. Sorry, it's so a little bumpy here and there. I saw some of the vegetation just fell down there. Now I have it completely done. But if you notice, I do have a lot of vegetation on the rocks, especially on the top portions of the rocks. But even on the actual rock faces, I might put some more on yet. I think I want to put some more vegetation on the bottom sections where the rocks have fallen off. Kind of want to get that covered up a little bit more, so you have just the uncovered rock faces being the vertical faces, and then the lower areas being more covered with vegetation. So I think I'm going to add some more vegetation yet on where the rocks fall and land on the lower edges. Now you can see it's a little, you can't see the white glue. Once I get it in there, I spray it with some wet water, which is basically dish soap, into just plain tap water, and then spray diluted white glue, 1 part glue to 3 parts water. It's about what you need to get it to go through the sprayer. So you can kind of see it's a kind of a whitish color. Eventually it will obviously dry, and then things will hopefully stay kind of in place, but you can kind of see how things kind of came together. Definitely makes a big difference going from white plaster to have it be more of the green vegetation. This area is right along the Echo Creek, so it's pretty green. You can see in the picture it's pretty green. This is where a road's going to go in there, by the way, and I'm going to put some trees in front of that so you can't see where the road hits the backdrop. Here you can see some of the imperfections and so on the backdrop. So definitely you need to get that covered up with some additional vegetation. A lot of the vegetation that I put on the rock faces is to cover up some white areas and so on. Now here you can see that same area. Notice I put some vegetation in there to cover up some of the plaster or paint that got on there. Vegetation. Put some on my N-scale trees. I still have some of those left in there. So that way the backdrop looks pretty clean. From a distance, you can't really see any. It just looks like a blue sky. I think this is after it's dried a little bit. You can see it's a little bit more flat. The last thing that I needed to do was get this fascia worked on. So I countersunked all the screws and then sanded it down. Now here the spackling that I put in there is still wet, so I haven't sanded everything yet. But just use some of that pink spackling that you put on, and then as it dries, the pink turns white, and you know that you can sand it. I also scraped as much of the plaster and paint off of there, and then I sanded everything off so that it was nice and smooth before I painted it black. There's one spot I missed. The hardboard is pretty smooth, so it's good to get it sanded before you put the final coat of paint on. So here now, this is kind of what it looks like at the end of this week. Definitely big change, and I'm pretty happy with the way this looks. As I said, I am going to add some more vegetation along the bottoms of the rock faces, and of course I will be ballasting this week also. And then I also want to put in the road. So before I move on to the next and final section, I'm not only want to ballast this, but I also want to put the road that goes alongside there, and then the crossing here, and then the road where it's kind of like on the edge here. I'll probably put some guardrails for the road, and then some trees right there in front of where the road goes into the backdrop, and then the road picks up again on the other side, and there'll be some trees there also. But you kind of get an idea how it's going to look with trains going through. So a big change, but still quite a bit to do. Once I get the ballast down and the road put in, I'll probably go ahead and finish that last section of scenery. And then before I get into doing weathering the track, I'll probably put in the crossing. All right, I see some trains going through. This first train is a manifest headed up by an Athearn Genesis AC 4400 CW, a patched CNW paint scheme. And then there's another Athearn SD70 ACE. And then it looks like a Scale Trains Tier 4 Gevo. And it meets a stack train headed up by a Athearn Genesis SD70 ACE heritage unit for the Katy AC 4400 by Scale Trains. And I believe the last one, the Norfolk Southern, is a straight SD70 in Norfolk Southern paint. Again, you'll notice that the Union Pacific usually has the companies that they partner with usually have the darker color. A few white colors here and there, but EMP and APL and Pacer, K-Line, a lot of those are the darker color. Looks great going through this Echo Canyon. looking forward to getting all the ballast down on here also, and the road. I think the road's really going to add a lot. There was a Gevo mid-train DPU on that stack train. And now we have a coal train coming through. Let's see if we can identify these locomotives. This is a Athearn Genesis Gevo. Sound is great. It has a scale system speaker in it. So that's a Athearn Genesis Gevo and a Intermountain Tier 4 Gevo. And it's followed by an AC 4400 by Scale Trains. I think that's Scale Trains. Yep, it is. And then we have a looks like another Athearn Genesis Gevo with a Norfolk Southern Scale Trains Gevo. And then another Scale Trains CN Canadian National Gevo. This is a manifest train going through Echo Canyon on the Union Pacific Railroad Evanston subdivision. Well, that's it for this week's update. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Make sure you like and subscribe if you haven't yet. Really appreciate your support. Next week, ballast and roads. Thanks again for watching, everybody. Have a great rest of your Sunday and super work week coming up. Take care, everyone.